Hiya, we're back and we got music this time. Finally. And no, I totally didn't change my setup again for like the third time for storytime stream. Totally didn't do that. Uh, and that's totally not a door right next to me. Um. Hmm. Can you hear the music? Actually, it doesn't say. Um. Great. Doesn't see. Okay. Um. Ugh, great. One sec. Gotta make sure I get this in. Desktop audio, come on. What? Hmm. Huh. Well, it was working here before I. At least before I. Why? What is going on? Well, this sucks. Guess there's not any music anyway. This sucks, but. Uh. Should we. Sorry about that. A lot's happening on my computer right now. And I don't know, it captured the music, the sound fine before I went live, but now it doesn't want to. So this sucks. And then I gotta make sure that I have the right mic on. This one. Bloop. Choo. Yep. Which means it's not. Is it coming from this? I don't think so. But yeah, totally didn't change my setup again. I gotta figure out what is going on with why it captures my desktop audio before I stream, but as soon as I start, it just doesn't capture the music, the sound from my computer anymore. That's weird. But yeah. After I like told myself, yeah, I need to get my old chair in use for the streams where I'm at my desktop at my desk. I lost my stream of thought. I lost my train of thought there. But anyway, I decided to use this chair again here because as much as I enjoy sitting on my bed streaming, it hurts my legs to sit like that for like hours. for as long as it takes me to read 5 chapters. So, yeah. Oh, crap. I thought I wanted to do this. Hey, kitty. My cat's lying right there. You can't see him right now. I wanted to put this on. If I can do this. Just a chain. You know, to spice up how I look. Because I look absolutely disgusting right now, but at least now you can tell I'm a lesbian. If it weren't obvious from the flag hanging. The flag's hanging behind me. Just gonna do this, like this. You can hear my older brother from his room, I'm pretty sure. I think you can. I mean, I can clearly hear him, but I don't know if you can. He's laughing right now at something he's watching. But yeah. I would have had my window open, but it is basically... There are no clouds in the sky at all. However, it's basically storming outside. The wind is horrendously strong. It has been for the past few days, and I absolutely hate it because I can't stand strong winds. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. Like I'm about to die. So yeah. I wouldn't say it's a phobia, just... They're just not me. Strong winds. Especially not when your room is right under the roof. So you can hear every creak and everything. And you just start thinking, oh shit, I'm about to die now. But yeah. Kitty? Wanna see kitty? Wanna see La Junior? I need some treats. Yeah, I'm lazy. Right here. These ones. Come on. You know. Yeah. You can kiss his face. Come here, come here. Yunya. Oh, oh, is this something you like? Is this something you like? Huh? Give me! Give me! Come here! Ow. Oh yeah, and guess what? I was finally able to have a proper conversation with my psychologist today. Instead of just me looking at her and her talking all the time and me just saying and nodding and shaking my head. It's actually... I didn't do that very much today. So that's a win. We've had 5 sessions together. Okay, kitty. Yeah. She also noted that I was full of energy when I came into her... When I came in. It looked as though it was full of energy, and I guess I was. Ow! Okay. Ow. I guess maybe Bones is kind of the reason that was full of energy, because we, Hey, kitty. Because we, talked and decided to call tomorrow. And I'm excited for that. And as soon as I woke up, I was like, is it Friday yet? No, it's only Thursday. Yeah, I'm also getting ready to send the package. I really, really want to send it right now, but I don't have money. Okay. So, Monday, probably, I'll be able to send it. Also, you'll probably get to see Blonde Me this weekend. if I can convince my older sister to help me bleach it. And we're gonna do something drastic in the beginning of next month. So, just be warned. Anyway. Chapters! Okay, so I was about to say chapter 6. Well, last storytime stream, we left off with Sunny finding a scavenger den that had been burned to the ground. And she's like, why? Who did this? And yeah, she was kind of kidnapped by 3 Nightwings who did not want Gloria as their queen. And they wanted to use her as ransom to take over the tribes. But Sunny got away from them, luckily. And she's now following them because they're on the way to Burned place. Queen Burn. And she's not nice. Because, well, they're on the way to her because they want her help. I think it was Burn, maybe it was Blister, I don't know. One of the two, because Blaze, she's kind of useless as a queen. Anyway, chapter 6. I hope you got our water ready, by the way. Mine is right behind the camera. And Junior is lying there. Jack. Chapter 6. Heat blazed across Sunny's scales. She burrowed into the sand, feeling the tiny particles drift across her talons and tail. The obsidian mirror caught the sunshine as if it were trying to suck out all the light into itself. And the black wisps of smoke on its surface looked like small sandstorms. Why wouldn't we go straight to Burn's stronghold? Fierce Teeth's voice demanded. Because she'll have us slaughtered the moment she sees us coming. So they are going to Burn. Prey Hunter said impatiently. Burn is a kill first, ask questions later kind of dragon. It makes sense to start at the Scorpion Den. Strongwings agreed. We can find someone here to take a message to Burn that we want to see her. Sunny closed her eyes. The Scorpion Den. That might be where my parents live. I thought the Scorpion Den was full of lowlives and criminals, said Fierce Teeth. It is, said Prey Hunter. It is? Thought Sunny. Is that what my parents are? Because they're the kind of criminals who know how to get things done, from everything I've heard, said Strongwings. It doesn't. Who is saying this? Is it Prey Hunter saying this? It doesn't say who says the next thing. That's exactly what we need right now. Besides, the Scorpion Den isn't far, just over those dunes. Sunny sat up and narrowed her eyes again against the bright glare of the sun. The Nightwings were far ahead of her, but she thought she could see a dark shape against the sand off in the distance, which might be the Scorpion Den. All right, Fierce Teeth grumbled. Waste of time if you ask me. Sunny cleared the mirror, feeling excitement prickle through her scales. She knew it was unlikely that she'd find out something about her past in the Scorpion Den, but it was still the closest she'd ever been to her parents. Even if they were criminals, she still wanted to know who they were. Also, a detour to the Scorpion Den would give her more time to slow down the Nightwings. She still hadn't come up with any plans to stop them from telling Burn everything. In the distance, she saw the tiny black shapes lift into the sky. Cautiously, she followed them. There was really nowhere to hide in the desert, unless she burrowed under the sand, so she was staying as far back as possible. But it was hard to stop her wings from beating faster and faster as they drew closer to the Scorpion Den. Sunny could see that it was a walled city full of winding alleyways, ramshackle stone buildings, tattered canopies, dilapidated tents in colors that had been faded by the sun over long periods of time. And it seethed with dragons. Scales glittered from every shadow, and venomous tails slithered around corners. She was so preoccupied staring at the time that she had to stop herself abruptly in mid-air when she realized that the three Nightwings had not gone inside, but was standing outside the tall gates at the single entrance. It looked as though they were arguing with the small Sandwing god, who stood with her wings folded back and tail raised menacingly. Sunny dropped quickly to the sand, hoping she hadn't been seen. She flattened herself against the dune, even though she knew her scales were not quite the right color for camouflage. Now that she was still, she could hear the dragons' voices shouting. "You have no right to stop us," Fierce Teeth roared. "Can't you see that we're Nightwings?" "Yeah," answered the guard. "So read my mind. The part that says, go eat your tails." "We have business in the Scorpion Den," Prey Hunter insisted. "No one gets inside without a contribution to the outlaws," the god said firmly. "The outlaws?" said Prey Hunter. "That's what you call yourselves. You must be joking." "Are you asking for treasure?" Fierce Teeth demanded. "Of course we don't have treasure. Our home was just..." "Surely you can make an exception for us," Strongwings interjected, cutting her off. "I mean, we're Nightwings." "And?" said the guard. There was a pause. Sunny grinned, imagining the apologetic fit Fierce Teeth was probably having. Apologetic. Apoplectic? I have not heard that word before. Apoplectic fit. Cool. There was a pause. Sunny grinned. "Oh, I already read that." "We could give you a prophecy?" Prey Hunter suggested after a moment. "Ha!" the god said, sounding modestly more interested. "That would be funny. Quibbly, tell Thorn we have three Nightwings offering their pathetic services." "I think you mean prophetic services," Fierce Teeth said. "Uh-huh," said the god skeptically. There was a long silence as everyone waited. Sunny wriggled higher up on the dune, hoping for a view of the city gates, but a long slope of sand dotted with prickly spears of cacti blocked her way. "What can I offer the guard to get inside the Scorpion Den?" she wondered. She glanced down at the obsidian mirror. It was the only thing she had. Was it worth giving up her one advantage over the Nightwings? On one talon, she knew she'd be happy to have its sinister weight out of her claws. But on a third talon... A third? Why not another? But on the third talon, she didn't know who would end up with their claws on this potentially dangerous weapon. What might the outlaws do with it? Moreover, even if she didn't offer it to them, what was to stop a band of outlaws from just taking it? Sunny thought for a moment, then quickly dug a hole in the sand next to one of the cactus balls and buried the mirror. Of course, there wasn't anything here to help her distinguish one brownish rolling sand dune from the next. She'd have to cross all of her claws and hope she'd be able to find it again. But a dangerous mirror nobody could find was better than a dangerous mirror floating around the Scorpion Den, surely. She lifted her head at the god as the god below spoke. "All right," he said. "Thorn wants to see you. Don't ask me why. Follow Quibbly and no funny business." Sunny waited as long as she could bear it, then scrambled up and started over the dune. Sorry, I'm reading ahead. I shouldn't be doing that, but I can't stop myself. A sandwing was standing there, no more than 3 steps ahead, staring straight at her as if he'd been waiting for her. His side was pucked and dented with old scars, and he had 6 claws on each foreleg instead of 5. Oh dear. She had no idea where he'd come from, or how he'd snuck up on her so quickly and quietly. Oh! She yelped. That means you too, he said calmly. Me too what? Sunny stammered. He tilted his head and studied her curiously, registering the odd color of her scales and eyes, and no doubt noticing her venomless tail as well. You ought to come before the outlaws as well. Don wants to know why you're following these scum dwellers. He jerked his head in the direction of the den and the Nightwings. Sunny had never heard anyone refer to Nightwings with that much disrespect before, except perhaps Sunny and Tsunami and Glory. I'm not following anybody, Sunny said, folding her wings back. She could hear how unconvincing she sounded. He shrugged. Lie to me all you want, but I wouldn't recommend trying it with Thorn. He flicked his tail and she flinched away. Come. It was not a request. At least he wasn't threatening to chain her up. At least going with him would mean getting into the Scorpion Den without the problem of payment. Fine, she said, lifting her chin. Take me to Thorn. They flew down to the city gates, and the guard nodded impassively as they went past her, straight into a crooked stone alleyway, with steps leading up and down. Sharp, spicy cooking smells filled the air, along with the scents of smoke and crowds of overheated dragons. The streets around them were lined with rickety stalls and tents, and voices began pressing in on Sunny. Crocodile stew, roasted scorpion, bag of crickets. Bet you'd like some gold for them golden scales. Oh dear. Ugh. Oh, sorry. That's just gave me the creeps. Stuck up on bright sting cactus. You never know when you might need it. Need anyone killed, little lady? Here, take my card. A small flat piece of metal inscribed with her name was pressed into Sunny's talons, and the sandwing who'd given it to her vanished almost immediately. Sunny blinked and glanced up at the dragon escorting her. Whose is it? He asked, plucking it out of her claws. Nah, you don't want him. Too expensive, barely competent. He tossed the card into another stall as they went by, and a snout poked out of a pile of carpets to growl at them. Ouch! Ouch! Sunny yelped as someone rushed past and stepped on her tail. She tried to sidestep a pair of quarreling dragons and got smacked in the face by a sandy wing. These streets are so narrow, but there are so many of them. And there are so many of them, they must accidentally scratch each other with their tails all the time. She looked more closely at the stalls around her and realized that many of them sold the cactus that was the antidote to sandwing venom. As far as she could see, it was nearly as popular as the giant camel-hide pouches of water being sold by every other merchant. Or the tiny blue dragons and shiny black spheres that also seemed to share all of the tables with other merchandise. A wooden signboard caught her eye, 3 dragons' faces carved under the word wanted. Sunny twisted to try and stare at the faces as her guard hurried past. Her guard hurried her past. She could have sworn one of them was Dune, and one of the others was... But surely it couldn't. But surely it couldn't be. Her guard steered her through the tangles of dragons, keeping one wing firmly settled against her back. Another dragon jumped out of his way when they spotted him. Other dragons jumped out of his way when they spotted him, or ducked their heads as he went by, or slipped into shadowy corners, hissing. Soon, Sunny realized that the same wooden wanted sign was posted everywhere, hung from walls, pinned to tent flaps, and nailed to the stall boards. She got a chance to peer at one more closely when they paused to let a cart of gold-painted boxes clatter by. It really does look like Marussia. Marussia, Dune, and a Nightwing I have never seen before. But why? And who's looking for them? There was a small print below the pictures, but Sunny didn't get to read it before her guard hurried on. Nearly all the dragons she saw were sandwings, although she also spotted a couple of scarlet skywings and even once the pale blue scales of an icewing, who must have been miserable in this heat. She also noticed a lot of war wounds, dragons with missing talons, mangled wings, clawed up snouts, or ripped ears, many of them huddling in the spaces between the stalls, skinny and wretched. Although she was sure the Scorpion Den was a dangerous place to live, she guessed a lot of dragons came here to hide from the war, either before they could be pressed into service, or after they'd been so badly injured that they couldn't bear to fight anymore. One sandwing limped up to them and did an odd half salute to Sunny's guard. "Going off duty, sir?" He paused and squinted at Sunny, and she realized that he had a long scratch across one of his eyes that had also torn up part of his nose. There was something vaguely familiar about him, but she was sure she would have remembered that scratch. "Adax, quit reporting to me all the time," the guard said. "That's not how the outlaws..." I missed the C. It's not outlaws, it's outclaws. Oh my god. I'm so dumb. That's not how the outclaws work. Also, I told you to stop calling me sir. Yes, right. The dragon coughed, clearly swallowing another sir. Who's your guest? Sunny sidled closer to her escort, wishing Adax would stop staring at her. Her guard seemed to sense this. He casually spread his big wings to shield her from view. "Just a visitor for Thorn," he said. "Carry on." Adax bobbed his head and shuffled off into the crowd. Some of these former soldiers have a hard time breaking their military habits, the big sandwing said to her. "But Adax is harmless, don't worry." Aw, he's being so nice to her. Aw, I love that. I mean, he's got some decent. He's got dragon decency. He's got some normal dragon decency. I was about to say humanity. He got humanity. Um, human decency, but you know they're dragons, so he's got some basic dragon decency. He's a nice guy. I already like him. I don't even know his name. If someone is being nice to Sunny, I like them. Because Sunny is, very different looking from all other sandwings. And many would probably just make fun of her and all that. Which I'm going to kill them for if they do. If I ever see a dragon be mean to her for how she looks, I'm going to have them on a death wish. On a death list. So, just saying. Sunny twisted to look back and saw that the limping sandwing had stopped in the shade of a stall that seemed to be selling poisons. His black eyes stared through her, and even when she ducked behind her guard's wings again and after they'd crossed several more alleys, she felt a prickling, creeping feeling along her spine, as if his gaze were following her. They wound their way toward the center of the city, stooping under torn canopies and tripping over uneven cobblestones. Sunny could smell something new up ahead, like exploded fruit, and she caught a glimpse of dark green through the gaps ahead of her, incongruous against the sand-colored buildings, faded orange tents, and red or black brick walls. A dragonet suddenly stumbled in front of Sunny, holding out its front claws. "Hungry!" he bleated. His pale yellow scales were slathered with dirt, and he was tiny, with bony ribs sticking out along his chest. His black eyes caught Sunny, and she stared down at him helplessly. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't have anything." The dragon beside her leaned forward and caught the dragonet before he could run off again, casually pinning the little one's tail to the ground with one talon. "Don't hurt him!" Sunny cried, but the god didn't even look at her. "Where's your guardian, Squirt?" he asked the dragonet. "Sorry, sorry, sorry!" cried a female sandwing, hurrying out of a nearby alley. "I would never have let him bother you, sir. Please forgive us." She grabbed the dragonet and clutched him to her. He drooped, no energy left to wriggle away. "You must be new here," said the six-clawed dragon, squinting at her. "You shouldn't be starving like that." "Oh." Dragonets up to 8 years old get a free meal every morning after sunrise at the pool. Start sending him, and he'll be the size of a real dragon soon. The sandwing shivered and ducked her head. "But, sir," she whispered, "I heard that was a trick." He sighed impatiently. "Let me guess. We feed them and grab them to turn them into outlaws. Am I right?" She flinched, and her wings folded closer around the dragonet. "Listen, we're not out to abduct a bunch of scrawny youngsters who'd be more trouble than they're worth. Thorn just wants to make sure no more dragonets die of hunger in a scorpion den. It's not complicated." "Yes, sir," the sandwing whispered. "Look, send him tomorrow morning, or I'll come after you myself," he said. She nodded and scuttled away, keeping the dragonet under her wings. "Some dragons," muttered Sunny's guard. "Is that true?" Sunny asked. "The, outlaws feed all the dragonets in the scorpion den?" He shifted his wings up and down and scowled. "We try to. Dragons don't change easily, though, especially in a place like this, and especially when someone's trying to help them. Brainless worms," he muttered, turning to stalk away again. Sunny wasn't sure what she would trust a gift. Sunny wasn't sure that she would trust a gift from this dragon either. "What's your name?" she asked as she caught up to walk beside him. He looked down at her, his black tongue flicking in and out. "Six claws." "Oh," Sunny said, glancing at his odd talents, and then, before she could stop herself, Your parents were feeling pretty creative." He barked a laugh that made several dragons around them leap into the nearest hiding place in Terra. Sunny glinted off his light yellowish brown scales as he held one of his front legs and examined the 6 wickedly sharp claws there. "I guess so. Yours?" "I'm Sunny," she said. "I never met my parents." She chanced a sideways look at his face, but there was no reaction there. He wasn't old enough to be her father, and from the way he walked and talked, she guessed he'd been in the scorpion den for a while. Plus, he had those 6 claws. Maybe peculiar defects ran in the family. Maybe he hadn't commented on her tail yet because he had seen other dragons with the same flaw. Dragons related to him. Or maybe I'm totally desperate. Aw, poor Sunny. They stepped down a set of 5 stone stairs, and their talons sank into the sand. Sunny tore her gaze away from Six Claws and saw that the shadows of tents and canopies had been replaced by a sweeping shade of large fronds. Okay. There was an oasis in the middle of the Scorpion Den. Well, that makes sense, Sunny realized. Why else would dragons build a city here? She could see a rippling pool of greenish blue water in the middle of the sand and the palms. She could also see multiple well-armed, dangerous-looking dragons patrolling around the outskirts of it. Are those all outlaws? She asked. You got the water in the Scorpion Den? In the desert, she who controls the water controls everything, Six Claws said. And here that she is Thorn, Sunny guessed. Six Claws nodded toward a large white tent set up beside the water. The walls billowed like swans' wings, and venomous tail points stuck out under the edges here and there. Two particularly mean-looking sandwings guarded the entrance, where a flap had been rolled up to allow dragons to pass through. Sorry, I'm reading ahead again! He's lying. He's having fun down there, just lying. As they approached, Sunny spotted a flash of black scales through the doorway and ducked behind Six Claws. He peered over his shoulder at her. Yes? I don't want them to see me, she whispered. The Nightwings, he asked. The ones you were not following. She nodded. Why? Sunny had a pretty strong feeling that it wouldn't be wise to reveal her connection to the prophecy. Even if the outlaws didn't immediately sell her to burn, someone else in the Scorpion Den was sure to pounce on that opportunity. They tried to kill me, she said. That was basically true. Six Claws looked amused. Here's some free advice. When a dragon tries to kill you, fly the opposite way. I'm keeping an eye on them, she said, bristling. I need to know what they're planning. That's up to Thorn now, he said. Come along and stay behind me. Sunny's heart thumped as they approached the tent. Should she try to run? Wasn't it possible, even likely, that Thorn and the Nightwings would team up to sell her to burn? Thorn was the leader of a gang of criminals, after all. Sunny wouldn't get far in the city, though, and not with the outlaws after her. Even in a place full of sandwings, she'd stick out like a fire on a dark night. She tried to keep the memory of the hungry dragonette in her head as she ducked under the soft white flap of the tent. A leader of criminals who fed small dragons didn't sound so bad. Maybe Thorn could be reasoned with. The three Nightwings were seated in a row on a bright orange carpet woven with alternating purple and white claw shapes. Can you even see my face? Not if I keep the book like this. A skylight in the tent ceiling was positioned to shine a ray of sunshine down on them, beaming bright and hot straight into their faces. Sunny had a feeling that was deliberate. They were surrounded on all sides by sandwings, many of them rippling with scars or missing teeth, as if they'd fought hard for a place in this tent and weren't planning to move anytime soon. The only clear spot was at the far end of the tent, where a pile of woven sky blue rugs were arranged on a dais. After a few moments, the sound of laughter came from inside, and 5 more sandwings pushed their way into the tent. Wow, this is actually a long chapter. Oh dear. Sunny couldn't tell which one was Thorn immediately, although she was smaller than the others and she wasn't wearing more treasure than anybody else. A solitary gold bracelet circled one of her forearms, a chain of flying dragons made from twisted wires. Okay. Oh, no, that was the bracelet. A chain of flying dragons made from twisted wires. Around her neck hung a simple copper chain with a moonstone pendant, an odd jewel to find in the desert, Sunny thought. Her scales were sandy yellow and dappled with a pattern of small brown speckles down her back and along her wings. She looked young, probably barely 20 years old, if Sunny had to guess. Most dragons grew quickly for the first 7 years of their lives, and then a little bit each year after that. So the oldest dragons were usually the largest, like Morosia and Burn and Grander. But Dawn was wiry and compact, and looked as if she might stay that way no matter how long she lived. What was it that made her seem so clearly the leader of this group? She was laughing with the others as they came in, but she walked a step ahead of them, her wings half open and tilted forward, as if she had somewhere to be, and her eyes scanning the room as if she were searching for something. She radiated an intense energy. Even Sunny caught herself wanting to follow her wherever she went next. The laughter dropped from Thorn's eyes when she spotted the 3 Nightwings. She curled her tail up threateningly before stalking around them and climbing onto the dais. Sunny was glad to not be the one under the glare. Nightwings, Thorn said darkly. Well, well, well. We haven't had any of you visit my fine city in about 7 years. Why would we? Fierce Teeth challenged. We're only here now because we want to make a deal with Burn. We need someone to take our message, Strongwings added. Someone is coming and I need to go this way. Hello.
Vi har Essen.
Hvad?
Vi har Essen. Det er tyskkultur, vi spiser.
Okay.
Kartofler med persillesauce.
Okay. Well, she wasn't coming in. Food's ready, but the chapter's almost done. But damn, it's a long chapter. How? 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16 on a bed. That's far longer than I'm used to in these books. Boop. Thorn leaned forward. That's irrelevant to me. Where's Morosia? All 3 Nightwings looked startled. You know Morosia? Prey Hunter stammered. Unfortunately, Thorn growled. Tell me where he is, and I'll seriously consider not killing you. Prey Hunter flared his wings, and several outclaws took a menacing step toward him. You can't kill us, he protested. We're Nightwings. I assure you Nightwings die just as easily as any other dragon, Thorn said. Would you like a demonstration? No, Strongwings said hurriedly. We'll tell you what we know. In exchange for a messenger to Burn, Fierce Teeth interjected. An exchange for your lives, Thorn countered calmly. I'm not sending any of my outclaws into that death pit. Most of them are here expressly because they're trying to avoid her. But, Fierce Teeth started. Morosia's dead, Prey Hunter blurted out. He died just a few days ago. There was a terrible silence. One of the dragons who'd come in last took a step toward Thorn, reaching out tentatively, her expression a surprising mix of horror and sympathy. Thorn's face contorted into a fury like nothing Sunny had ever seen before. With a cry of rage, she leaped off the dais. Dais. I don't know how to pronounce that. Dais. Days. Is that days? I don't know. Seized Prey Hunter by the throat and flung him to the ground, where she pinned him with her claws and swung her tail over his heart. Fierce teeth and strong wings didn't have time to react before Outclaws were there, holding them back. It wasn't necessary, though. Sunny could see that they were too terrified to do anything to help Prey Hunter. Say that again, Dawn hissed in Prey Hunter's face. Sorry. I'm reading ahead. This is actually... Gosh. Say that again, Thorn hissed in Prey Hunter's face. He's dead, Prey Hunter stammered. Isn't that good news? It sounded like you hated him. Aren't you glad he's dead? He can't be dead, Thorn said. Tell me the truth, you lying bag of bones. Tell me how to get to your secret home and where Marozia is, and what he did to... She cut herself off abruptly. I can't tell you any of that, Prey Hunter whined. We're not allowed to, but I promise you Marozia is dead. Really, really, really dead. No! Thorn shouted. A burst of flame shot out of her mouth, scorching a spot beside Prey Hunter's neck. He screamed with fear, and two outlaws jumped forward to beat out the flames on the carpet before the fire reached the tent. At the same moment, Prey Hunter convulsed and lashed out, slicing at Thorn's underbelly with his sharp talons. Moon-blasted crocodile spawn! Six Claws roared, knocking dragons aside as he leaped at Prey Hunter. Another Sandwing, a male dragonet around Sunny's age, also darted forward from the other side. But they weren't fast enough. Thorn's tail stabbed down into the Nightwing's heart, and with a shriek of pain, Prey Hunter collapsed underneath her, dead. Whew! Damn. Sorry. Well, end of chapter 6. Ah! I should probably go down and eat something. We still have 4 chapters to go. We only just started. And damn, that chapter was long. They're usually like 10 pages, but this was like 6 pages longer than usual. Damn. Let's see how long the next chapter is. It's like Sophia 6 8. The next chapter is 8 pages long. Damn. I mean, we did get a lot of information in that one singular chapter. That's actually pretty cool. Though it did take long to read, and I'm sorry for stumbling over words and reading ahead and everything. I'm not the fastest reader out loud, but you know, nobody is, I guess. And you need to be able to hear me clearly instead of me just going all the time. So you can't really follow what's happening in the story. Dang. I like Six Claws, and I already like Thorn. Morosia was there before, which me and she said something. What did he do to? And she cut herself off. So I'm thinking maybe that's when he went looking for an egg that was about to hatch on the brightest night. That he was going to hide in the desert near the Scorpion Town. Maybe she knows something about that. About Sunny's egg. Maybe. But I'm gonna go down and eat something. And then I'll be coming back. Don't worry. But yeah. A pretty interesting chapter so far, eh? But see you in a bit. Ah, that's good to get something to eat. Again, don't worry about that. That's just a map. Like, I don't know, like, no map. Like, I don't know what to call it. It's messy in my room. Don't worry about it. And the cat left, so he gets no more treats. Anyway, after a long chapter, we get a chapter that is only half as long. So, it should be doable. I need to yawn now because I've drunk water. If I got anything in my teeth, you just comment on it because, like, yeah. Anyway, chapter 7. Sunny stared at the Nightwing's body, his wings lying crookedly on either side of him, his snout contorted into a final twist of despair. He was a bad dragon, she told herself. The world was better off this way. My friends are safer now that he's dead. But he had a horrible life, the other half of her argued. Maybe he could have changed. Maybe there was a better dragon inside him somewhere. If someone had bothered to try and bring it out. Thorn stepped away from the body, taking a deep breath. Six Claws put one talon on her shoulder, and she gave him a rueful look, as if she hadn't wanted to kill Prey Hunter after all. Oh. Well then. She might not have, but if he hadn't she might not have if he hadn't lashed out at her. Or maybe she had to either way to make sure the other Nightwings know how serious and dangerous she is. It's alright, Quibbly. Thank you. Thorn said to the dragonette who'd run forward to help her. He stood on this other side of the body, looking as though he'd very much like to stab it again, just to be sure. Let's try this again, Thorn said, turning to Fierce Teeth and Strong Wings. The two black dragons had their heads down and their wings pressed in close to their bodies. Thorn stopped, eye to eye with Fierce Teeth. Tell me how to find Marozia. Fierce Teeth hesitated only for a moment, then said, It's an island. Fierce Teeth, Strong Wings hissed. What? She snapped at him. What does it matter anymore? It's all destroyed anyway. She returned her scowling gaze to Thorn. We lived on an island north of the continent, but the whole place was just wiped out by a volcano. Marozia was killed by it. That's the truth, so sorry if you don't like it. She lifted her chin defiantly. I can't let Starlight's sister die, Sunny thought, no matter how terrible she is. Not if I can stop it. She knew it was foolish to expose herself here, but it felt like clearly the right thing to do. That was what being in the prophecy was all about. If she wanted to keep believing in it, she had to keep acting worthy of it. It's true, she called. She pushed her way through the Sandwings, who blinked at her in confusion. It's true. Don't hurt her. She stumbled onto the sand in front of Thorn, half a wingspan from the Nightwings who tried to kill her. You! Fierce Teeth cried. I was there, on the Nightwing Island, Sunny said, ignoring her. Thorn's black eyes were pinning her to the sand like an exotic insect, studying every bizarrely golden scale. There was a volcano, and it wiped out the Nightwings' home and killed Marozia. I'm sorry, she added, and she was, although she wasn't quite sure why. Who in the blazes are you? Thorn asked. This is the one who was following them, Six Claws said, nodding at the black dragons. Fierce Teeth scowled. Strong Wings just looked shocked. Said Thorn, tilting her head. Really? So, you're not here to see me about the reward? What reward? Sunny shook her head. I'm just trying to stop them before they hurt my friends. she said, and then added with a rush of hope, "Please don't let them send a messenger to Bern. It'll put a lot of dragons in danger." "Really?" Thorn said. She twisted to look at the Nightwings. "What do you have to say about that?" "We have information we know Byrne will pay handsomely for," Strongwings said, glaring at Sunny. "Not only us. I'm sure he'll reward anyone who helps us get to her. And she'll pay even more if you throw in this puny dragonette." Thorn regarded Sunny skeptically. "Why?" "Oh dear." Sunny shook her head, but of course that wasn't going to stop him. "She's one of the dragonettes in the prophecy," he said triumphantly. Every dragon in the tent seemed to sit up at once. A few leaped to their feet and slipped out the front entrance. Sunny noticed uneasily. Most of the others started whispering to each other. She caught snippets like, "Why so small?" and "That's why that soldier," and "But her tail," and "No wonder Byrne." One dragon was missing. One dragon with a missing eye shifted closer to peer at her, and Sunny tucked her tail closer around her talons, shivering. "And we know where the others are," Strongwings went on. Fierce Teeth smacked him in the snout with her tail. "Shut up!" she snarled. All of Thorn's burning energy was now fixed on Sunny. She took a... Sorry. She took a step closer, then circled Sunny, inspecting her. Sunny tried to look brave and calm, even as Thorn picked up her harmless tail and flipped it curiously between her claws. Said the leader of the Outlaws. "You're a little unusual." "I know," Sunny said. "It's all right, though. I don't mind. It's just the way I hatched." "On the brightest night," Thorn said, 6 years ago. It was not exactly a question, but Sunny answered it anyway. "Yes." Thorn walked around Sunny one more time, her talons sending up small clouds of sand between the gaps in the carpets, and then stopped beside her, frowning at the Nightwings. "One more question for you cowardly lizards. Can you tell me anything about a Nightwing called Stonemower?" "Ooh, he was in that quiz I took yesterday. Like who had the most tragic, most sad background story, and that name was cast there as well. Was in there as well. So I'm excited now." Strongwing snouted. "He took off 6 or 7 years ago, and no one's heard from him since. The Queen was furious." This answer didn't seem to make Thorn any happier than anything else they'd said. She hissed quietly, then turned to Six Claws. "Put them somewhere unpleasant," she ordered. "I'll decide what to do with them later. You," she said to Sunny, "come with me." "Now my sister's coming. One sec."
Hvad står du tror, Babes, når ens titel er bestyrer, men den går
Nej, shut
ikke,
up.
når man tænker af frityrer.
Gå væk med dig.
Han får for lidt.
Gå væk med dig.
Det er derfor, han er sådan.
DMCA! Gå væk. I'm sorry.
Han plejede at få.
Nej, stop!
Nu får han for lidt. Ja, han får alt for lidt. Han deler rigtig fedt. Kommer det der til at tage længe?
Tja.
Så jeg havde planer om at se mit reality-tv.
En time.
Okay.
Det første.
Lige begynder jeg at se tv.
Quietly, please. They left on a tide of murmuring dragons. Sunny felt the same way she had when she was in the cage in the Sky Palace, hung up for everyone to stare at. She stayed close to Thorn's tail. The back wall turned out to divide the tent in two, and when they ducked through a flap, Sunny found herself in a smaller area with fewer rocks, where there were a couple of low black tables, a trunk packed with scrolls, and two startling pictures pinned to the wall. Okay. Nope, and we're just gonna do that. Yes. Don't want anyone to click that link. Okay. Sunny gasped when she saw them. One was Morosio, drawn in dark ink, glowering the way he always did. The paper was large and pockmarked with tiny holes. Like someone's been throwing rather sharp things at it, Sunny thought. The other picture was slightly smaller, but had received the same treatment. Staring out at her, looking much younger than she remembered him, was Dune. She touched the paper lightly with one claw. How? She said. He still has scars, but he looks much healthier. This must be back when he was still getting the sun and heat at night as Antwing needs, before he went into hiding under the mountain to take care of us. You know him? Fawn asked from behind one of the low tables. She sounded casual, but there was something ferociously intense in her eyes. Sunny wondered how much to admit, but before she had to answer, the flaps rustled, and the same dragonet from before shoved his way in. He was bigger than Sunny, but now that she could see him more clearly, she guessed he was perhaps a year younger. A dark amber earring glowed in one ear, and a small, rakish scar zigzagged across his nose. Quibbly, Thorn warned. This is a private discussion. I'm not leaving her alone with no stranger, Quibbly said, shooting a look full of daggers at Sunny. I'll prophesy like I'm not. Thorn looked amused. Your loyalty is charming, but I think I can handle this dragonet as well as you can. It's better to have backup, he insisted. He twisted his tail forward to rest on the sand in front of him. I promise I'll be quiet. Well, that I do have to see, she said, rolling her eyes. All right, what was your name? Sunny. Thorn crossed to the trunk of scrolls, which sat on another sky blue rock. Wiping her front talons on the fabric to shake off the sand, Thorn leaned in and picked up a sheaf of loose pages. Sunny, she echoed. Before you say anything else, you're really not here for the reward? I don't know anything about a reward, Sunny promised. Quibbly made a scornful noise. Without commenting, Thorn handed her one of the pages. The thick, yellowish paper crinkled stiffly between her claws. Reward, reward, reward for any information leading to the whereabouts of two Nightwings once seen around the Scorpion Den, known as Morosia and Stonemower. For any information regarding the present location of a scarred sandwing named Dune, last seen frequenting the night market 7 years ago. For any dragonet hatched in the last 6 years with unusual features. Come before Thorn at the Outclaw pool with anything. Your safety guaranteed. Reward, reward, reward. Oh, damn! Smaller drawings of Morosia and Dune accompanied the words, along with another drawing of a subdued-looking Nightwing. She guessed was Stonemower. She glanced at the other papers that Thorn was holding and saw similar pronouncements with slightly different words. 5 years ago, or in the last 3 years, for instance. This wasn't a new search or a new reward. This was the latest update of an ongoing hunt. Sunny put the paper down slowly. Pieces were starting to come together in her mind, bubbling with a funny, hopeful, confused way. You don't know anything about this? Thorn asked. Sunny shook her head. I haven't been in the kingdom of sand in the last 6 years. She took a deep breath, then let it all spill out from her. My egg was found out in the desert alone by a dragon named Dune. That dragon. She pointed to the picture on the wall as Thorn inhaled sharply. He took me to be raised by the talents of peace along with the other dragonettes of destiny. After all, I fit in the prophecy, she hesitated and added. And my parents clearly didn't want me. She raised her head and met Thorn's eyes. The leader of the outlaws dropped the rest of the papers, stepped forward, and seized Sunny's front talons in hers. He didn't find you, she growled. He stole you. He knew where I'd hidden you for your own safety, and he betrayed me. Sunny felt as though she couldn't breathe. The claws wrapped around hers, and dark eyes fixed on her. The dark eyes fixed on her. These were the only real things in the tent. Everything else was blurring and sliding away. Oh my gosh, I'm getting the chills from this. This is it, she thought wonderingly. This is the moment we all dreamed about, all those years under the mountain. I wanted you, Thorn said fiercely. You were the only thing I wanted. I've done everything I could to find you. Not fulfilling the prophecy, but finding my dragons, my parents. Thorn gripped her claws tighter. Sunny, you're my daughter. End of chapter 7. Ah! Okay. Water. 3 chapters to go. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I got no words. Well. Wait. Yeah. Okay, so Sunny's mother had been looking for her actively, and Clay's mother sold Clay's egg. Nightwing, Starflight's egg was given away. They didn't really care about him other than he being the Nightwing of the group. Glory's egg, well, they didn't know it was gone at all. She didn't know who her parents were either. And then Tsunami. Her mother, the queen, obviously knew about her. Well, and was looking for her, but we don't actually know if she actually looking for her anymore. But we know. But so far, I can tell the only ones with loving parents are actually Tsunami and Sunny. Someone who'd been looking for them. It's actually, wow, that's really a bummer to the others, to the other dragonettes, when they find out. Okay. I'm sorry. Chapter 8. Sunny's scales felt as though they were fizzing and humming and trying to leap right off her. She flung herself into Thorn's wings, which folded around her like sunbeams. Hey! Quibbly barked, jumping up. It's alright, sit down, Thorn said. She rested her head on top of Sunny's and pulled her in more tightly. I knew you didn't really abandon me, Sunny said, although she wasn't sure how much she'd ever really known that. I knew I'd find you one day. I knew I'd find you one day, said Thorn. I didn't take over this city for nothing. Never thought you'd just come strolling into my tent, though, chasing a trio of nightwings, no less. She leaned back and smiled. Funny, brave little dragon. It was warm, warm, warm here in her mother's wings, as warm as Sunny had always wanted to be. Hang on, Quipley interjected. Thorn, begging your pardon, but how do you know? She could be anybody. She could be playing you. She could be a con artist. I've met enough con artists in the last 6 years, Thorn said calmly, swaggering in here, hoping to cheat me out of the reward. This is my daughter. Where's my father? Sunny asked. It's not Dune, is it? Bright smashing suns? No, Thorn said. What a horrifying thought. No. She shot a glance at Quibley. He's not around anymore. We can talk about that later. But speaking of Dune, if you can point me to him, he's on this needs to be violently dismembered list I have. Sorry. um, he's already dead, Sunny said. But he wasn't so bad, really. He died trying to protect us. Successfully? Thorn asked. Well, not very successfully, Sunny admitted. We kind of all got captured by the Skywing Queen. But we're alright now. Thorn growled. Teeth of the Viper, I cannot believe my enemies have all died before I could rip their heads off myself. Quibbly, give me those drawings. The dragonette unpinned the drawings of Marozia and Dune from the wall, and Thorn kept one wing around Sunny as she tore them into tiny shreds. Feel better? Sunny asked. Yeah, Thorn said, hugging her close again. Would you like me to have those Nightwings killed for you? No, no, Sunny said quickly. One of them is the sister of my friend. She hesitated. I kind of wish you hadn't killed the other one. I know, Thorn said. She lifted her talons, checking them for blood. It's not my very favorite part of the role, but if you want to lead dragons, you have to show them your claws sometimes, Feel. Beetle? Sunny echoed. Thorn gave her an affectionate grin. It was my pet name for you when you were still in your egg, she said. That's what I've been calling you in my head all these years. But I like Sunny. Dune must have been paying attention when I talked about the possible names for you. Her face darkened. So you were friends? Sunny prompted. I thought so. Her mother looked up at the tent ceiling for a moment, her eyes glittering. I have so many questions, Sunny said softly. How did you know I would look weird? Why did you have to hide my egg for safety? What do the Nightwings have to do with anything? So do I, said Thorn. I want to know everything about everything you've done for the last 6 years. And we should celebrate. Let me send all my regards about their duties. And I'll tell Armadillo to plan a party. Free roasting lizards and camel milk for the whole Scorpion Den tonight. She grinned. Wait, Sunny said. I don't need a party. Perhaps not, but it'll accomplish 3 things, Thorn said briskly. First, I'll relieve the tension out here. All those dragons wondering what will happen when with a prophecy dragon in our midst. Second, it'll let everyone know you're my daughter, so they'll treat you with respect, and not just curiosity. And third, it'll make it very clear that you're under outlaw protection. which you're going to need in this city. Oh, oh, Sunny said. For a moment, she worried that her mother was like Blaze, just looking for any excuse for a party. It was reassuring to realize she had smart reasons for what she was doing. Corinna! A commotion erupted in the main tent. Being Dragons yelling, something being knocked over. Thorn whirled around with her tail high, alert for any danger. But when a sandwing burst through her flaps and threw himself at her feet, she relaxed and waved quickly back. What is it? Thorn asked. Reports of a dragonbite viper, he gasped. Seen near the orphanage. Are we sure? Thorn demanded, grabbing a long spear made of 3 strands of metal, twisted together and split into several sharp points at the end. Have any outlaws confirmed that it's really there? No, he said, panting. But someone panicked and set the nearest stalls on fire. The orphanage will go up in flames if we don't put it out fast. And so will the rest of the city. Thorn said. Sonny, I'm sorry, I have to take care of this. Of course, Sonny said, jumping up. Can I help? What can I do? You can stay here safely, so I don't have to worry about you, Thorn said. Please, dragonbite vipers are not to be trifled with. I'll be back as soon as I can. She snatched up a bag by the outer flap and ducked out of the tent, gone before the messenger could scramble to his feet and follow her, I mean. Sunny and Quigley stared at each other for a few long moments. Sunny wondered if she should be upset that her mother had brushed aside her offer to help, but honestly, she wasn't sure she'd have been much use. As the excitement of meeting her mother wore off, her wings began to feel like heavy boulders again leaning against her sides. Her head was woozy from the strange smells and noises of the scorpion den. What's a dragonbite viper? Sunny finally asked. Really? Quickly said. It's the most dangerous thing in the desert, probably in all of Pyria. But we get them more than most tribes. Okay. It's the only snake in the world that can kill a dragon. There's a snake that can do that? Sunny said. She shuddered from her horns to her wingtips. Creepy. He nodded and she tilted her head at him. Is Thorn your mother too? She asked. Ha! He said, startled. He touched his snout self-consciously, where a few brown speckles stood out against his light yellow scales, much like the ones all over Thorn. Moons, no. She saved me from my mother. Besides, the way I understand it, there's only ever been one egg for Thorn, and that's you, if you are who you say you are. Nobody else? Sunny asked. I don't have any brothers or sisters? He shook his head. You're better off. Mine are a pair of dung-snorted hippo heads who'd rather stab me with their tails than share as much as a fig with me. Joke's on them, now that I'm an outlaw. Quibbly puffed his spines up and made a ferocious face. And you better not be messing with Thorn either. There's plenty of outlaws lined up behind me who'll make you sorry if you are. I wouldn't know how to mess with her, Sunny said. I promise. I'm really very nice. Quibbly said skeptically. There was a tan camel hair pillow. There was a tan camel hair pillow next to one of the black tables that looked softer than anything Sunny had slept on in the last several days. And she hadn't slept much, waking up frequently to make sure the Nightwings hadn't flown onward without her. She curled up on the cool sand and rested her head and front talons on the pillow. Quickly kept his dark eyes on her, his brow furrowed, as if he hadn't quite decided whether to trust her yet. So, what do the outlaws do? Sunny asked. He fluffed his wings, scattering sand in all directions. Everything. We keep the scorpion den from becoming a mess of blood and teeth, which it used to be with everyone fighting all the time, till we sorted them all out. And we make sure those that has too much are convinced to pass some along to them with nothing. And what do you do with the pool? Sunny was genuinely curious, but for some reason Quipley's answers seemed to be fading in and out. We're the boss of it, he explained proudly. That way we can get water to all the little dragonets and the sick dragons and the wounded from the war. When they're not too scared to come around and ask for it anyway. We can be very intimidating, he added with a satisfied nod. Mm-hmm, Sunny said, her eyelids drooping. Are you falling asleep in the middle of my fascinating explanation? Quibley demanded, sounding outraged. No, Sunny mumbled, inaccurately, as if he said anything else she did. And if he said anything else, she didn't hear it. Woke up in darkness to the sounds of dragons roaring and carousing around outside the tent. A small oil lamp, gleaming bronze, was set beside her, and Six Claws sat beside it, chewing on something that had been skewered with a stick and burned to a crisp. He dipped his head to her as she sat up and yawned. Your mother said not to wake you. The shiver that sent down Bunny's spine was both lovely and unsettling. My mother. You could have. I always feel like I'm missing something when I'm sleeping, Sunny said, stretching. Where is she? Still trying to put out all the fires and restore order. He flipped one wing at the noise beyond the white, billowing walls. There was something solid about his presence, as though, of course, he would be there, waiting patiently whenever she woke up and needed him. Sunny could imagine that her mother would be able to rely on him. She wondered again if there was any chance he might be her father. Thorn had said not around, but maybe that just meant not attached anymore. Or maybe there was a reason she was keeping it a secret from the other outlaws. Most significantly, knowing he had hatched with his unusual 6 claws might be enough to make Thorn think Sunny would have something odd about her too. What happened with the Viper? Sunny asked. Is everyone alright? 6 claws stopped chewing and looked at her. We didn't find the Viper yet, but we've contained the fire, for the most part, and nobody was bitten so far. So we're either very lucky or quite unlucky if there's really a Viper out there. He considered her for a moment, then added, Thanks for asking. Oh, Sunny said, flustered. She'd been worried. Of course she'd asked. Of course. 6 claws nodded. 6 claws tossed his stick and rubbed sand over his talons. Ready to be presented to the outlaws? He asked her. Not even remotely, Sunny confessed. He chuckled in a rumbling way and lifted the flap so she could step through the tent and out onto the shifting sands, pale in the light of the 3 moons overhead. The bright orange and yellow flames of torches flickered all around the oasis, reflecting in a dance across the pool. There were too many dragons for Sunny to count, especially in the wavering shadows, and most of them were moving, chasing one another across the sand, calling out insults or threats or jokes, laughing and tossing drinks at each other. As she blinked around, looking for Thorn, one of the sandwings toppled into the pool with a splash, and 3 others jumped to haul her out. Idiots, 6 claws said with affection and started forward. Idiots. Fair enough, said a voice in the darkness behind the tent. 6 claws, stop where you are. 6 claws flung around with a hiss. I take orders from Thorn and no one else. Oh, it's not an order, said the other dragon. He stepped forward so the torchlight could catch on his yellow scales, and Sunny recognized the sandwing they'd run into on the street earlier. Adax, the one with the scratch who'd looked familiar. It's a suggestion I think you'll really want to listen to. 6 Claws took a menacing step toward him, and Adax flicked his tail. Oh dear. Sorry, reading ahead. I'm an idiot, I know. Yeah. 6 Claws took a menacing step toward him, and Adax flicked his tail. 2 more beefy dragons appeared behind them. They all had small dragonette. They had a small dragonette pinned between them, perhaps 2 years old, which with nearly white scales and a tail barb that still wasn't fully developed. She squeaked nervously as they dragged her forward. The real question, really, said Adax, is which daughter do you care about more? The alleged long lost egg that Thorn has been searching for, or yours? Sunny glanced up at 6 Claws and saw the fury and fear contorting his face. He sank his talons into the sand, raising his tail. Beyond him, in the shadows, she saw 4 more sandwings slide out from behind the tent and stand menacingly between them and the pool. Ostrich, 6 Claws growled, his eyes fixed on his daughter. Don't be scared. I won't let them hurt you. Don't make a mistake here, Adax warned him. My friend's tails are much closer to your dragonette than you are to me. If you attack, or even shout for help, she'll be dead in an instant. But this doesn't have to get all violent, 6 Claws. We want the dragonette of destiny. It's a simple, fair trade. There was no dragonbite viper, was there? 6 Claws said. You set that fire to draw Thorn away. Do you know how many dragonettes you could have killed? Yes, said Adax. Don't make it one more. 6 Claws growled again, and Sunny saw his eyes start from her to his daughter. He loves her so much, she thought. That's what I always wanted. That's what I might have now, with Thorn. Family and answers, and a place to belong. But only if I deserve it. I can't take it at the expense of another family. It's all right, she said to 6 Claws. Make the trade. You have to. I'll be fine. She glanced up at the palm leaves that blocked the view of the stars. Adax had smartly cornered them in a pocket of shadow where they couldn't be spotted from across the pool. What do you want her for? 6 Claws asked. Byrne wants the dragonettes pretty badly, Adax said. She'll take me back if I show up with one of them. Back into our army? 6 Claws demanded. Why would you want that? You could be safe here. The war never comes to the Scorpion Den. Adax shifted, firelight gleaming in his dark eyes. I was thrown out of her army, but my family wasn't. There are dragons there I need to get back to. Oh, sad, Sunny thought, and then her brain added, in a voice much like Tsunami's. Sunny, by all the moons, quit feeling sorry for dragons who want to abduct you and sell you off. She glanced down at the 6 wickedly curved claws that were carving gouges in the sand beside her. She had a bad feeling that 6 Claws was planning to fight, which couldn't possibly go well for either him or Ostrich. 6 Claws, she said firmly. I said make the trade. My mother will understand. She wanted to jump forward herself and wrench the little dragonet out of their claws. Ostrich was trembling so badly that Sunny could hear her teeth clicking together. But Thorn, Six Claws said, twisting around to glance back at the flickering lights by the pool. Doesn't have to know, Addex said. Tell her this one ran off. Woke up, decided she didn't want to be a criminal thug for a mother. Want a criminal thug for a mother, and flew for the hills. Don't tell her that, Sunny protested indignantly. She smacked her tail against the sand. That's so mean. I wouldn't do that. If he tells her the truth, Thorn is likely to get herself killed trying to rescue you, Addax said. Would you prefer that? No, but at least come up with something believable, Sunny said spiritedly. She looked up at Six Claws. You can tell her I had to go back to my friends to let them know they're safe from the Nightwings. Tell her I'll be back. Six Claws stared at her, his face unreadable. Addax flickered his tongue. You won't be. You don't know that, Sunny said. Now release Ostrich, and I'll go with you. She was starting to worry that the little dragonet would have a heart attack and collapse right there. No, Alex said. She flies with us until we have an hour's head start, and then I'll send her back. That made practical sense, although Sunny didn't want to drag Ostrich any further into danger. But if they left Ostrich behind, Six Claws and the others would chase them down before they could reach Burns' stronghold. All right, then let's go, she said. Even more than Ostrich, she was worried about what Six Claws might do. She didn't think he'd stand a chance against 7 big dragons. And what if he's my father? And Ostrich is my half-sister? I don't want him to die before I get to know them. It wasn't until they were aloft, winging north through the cold desert night toward the stronghold of one of the most dangerous dragons, Superior, that the thought occurred to Sunny that she might be the one who was about to die. End of chapter 8 and end of the first part of the book. We're on to part 2, which is called Burns' Stronghold. Oh dear, we got 2 chapters left. Bring up that water, fellas. I was between saying fellas and people, and I said fellas first. Drink up that water, people. Oh dear. I'm excited. Chapter 9. I need to see how long this chapter is actually. 3, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. 12. Chapter 9. The outer walls of the palace were dripping with blood. Sunny had read the scrolls about the Sandwing stronghold, and she'd seen it from afar, but nothing could have prepared her for the smell of the decapitated dragon heads that studded the top of the walls, or the gruesome stains on the stone below them. They were still more than a mile away when the horrible rotting smell first reached her, making her choke and nearly driving her out of the sky. Addax caught her as she faltered toward the sand. Swallow breaths, he advised. You get used to it. Do you? Really? Sunny asked. He shrugged, which, as far as she could tell, meant no. Ostrich had been released during the night shooting one last terrified look at Sunny before bolting back toward the distant fires of the Scorpion Den. Sunny thought that Adax had deliberately freed the dragon net while the den was still visible to them. Optimistically, she thought perhaps he was concerned for Ostrich's safety. It seemed kind. It seemed kind not to make her find her way in total darkness. She could almost hear friends laughing at her in her head. That's right, Sonny. Your kidnapper is a real sweetheart. He's handing you over to burn out of the goodness of his heart, too. But if he was doing this for his family, for someone he cared about, Sonny glanced over at the scarred dragon and thought, there's more to his story. There's always more to everyone's story if you bother to find out what it is. That's true. The sun had cleared the mountains when they came to the sentries, a pair of sandwings carrying long spears. Relentless heat beat down from the cloudless sky, making the smell much worse. Sunny's wings ached from flying so long without stopping. She could see the brownish-yellow walls of the stronghold overhead, stained and crusted with the dark red and black gore that dripped from the grisly decorations. It was a vast palace, far larger than she had realized when she'd seen it from a distance. The ramparts seemed to stretch across the horizon, and Sunny guessed that 2 or 3 scorpion dens could fit inside, or about 1,000 of the caves she'd grown up in. "Hold it!" said one of the sentries, swinging the spear toward them. He squinted. "Adax." "Ho there," said Adax. He waved a claw, and the dragons behind him all paused, beating the air and craning to see past his wings. "Picked up some friends new somewhere, I see," said the sentry, half-jokingly. "Are you invading, or what's all this?" "Brought a present for the queen," said Adax. He flicked his tail at Sunny, and she hissed at him. "Recognize this one?" Both sentries drew in a quick breath. "From the party in the Sky Kingdom," said one of them. "Scarlet was going to give her to Queen Byrne." That's where I've seen Adax before," Sunny realized, bowing and scraping behind Byrne as she examined me as a deformed gemstone before he got his scar. "And now I've found her, and I'm giving her to the queen," said Adax smugly. The sentry looked skeptically at their entourage. "And you need 7 dragons to transport this midget creatures safely?" "I'm terrifying when you get to know me," Sunny volunteered. She had a couple of the dragons behind her chuckle, but Adax shot them a stern look, and they subsided. "Wait," said the other sentry. "Doesn't that mean she's one of—" "Yes," Adax said. "Now stop delaying and let us through, all right?" The sentries flapped aside, both of them examining Sunny intently as she and her escort flew past them. Oh. In all of Sunny's fantasies about fulfilling the prophecy and saving Pyria, she'd never imagined that'd be quite so much staring. And she certainly hadn't counted on getting locked up as often as she already had been. As they swooped down toward the thick, forbidding walls of Byrne's stronghold, Sunny thought with a shudder that this might be the worst prison so far. Scarlet's palace had gladiator fights, but at least she hadn't kept the dismembered parts of her enemies on display. And it isn't exactly easy to cut off a dragon's head, Sunny remembered Starflight saying, even if it's already dead. They'd been reading in the study cave. He'd rolled out the scroll and tapped the drawing of the stronghold. You'd have to be pretty brutal to get through the scales and everything else. Sunny also remembered that the outer walls had been added by Byrne after Queen Oasis died. They look solid and thick and imposing, but used for keeping out dragons who can fly. The only creatures they'd really keep out for certain are scavengers. A scavenger had killed Byrne's mother, after all. Is Byrne afraid of them? From what Sunny had seen of her, it was hard to imagine that Byrne was afraid of anything. Addax led the way as they spiraled down onto the hot white stones of an enormous courtyard that circled the old palace. Long, squat buildings had been constructed along the inner sides of the walls. They appeared to be extra barracks for soldiers. Small gatherings of armed sandwings were visible in each direction, either cleaning weapons, sparring, or sleeping. In the center of the courtyard, opposite the palace entrance, stood an odd kind of monument, a tall black obelisk surrounded by a circle of sand wider than a large dragon's wingspan. Words were carved into the side with the letters all painted in gold, but Sunny couldn't read them from where she was. The old palace within the walls was a lot more elegant than the parts Byrne had added. There were slender towers and windows as tall as dragons, and high pavilion landing platforms topped with domes and spires. Shapes were carved all over the stone, lizards and desert birds and suns, mostly, as far as Sunny could see at first glance. It made the palace look for a moment as though it was crawling with life or shimmering with heat, an unsettling illusion of emotion probably intended to make visitors uncomfortable. The doors were open to the huge front entrance of the palace, and Sunny realized with a start that a dragon was standing just on the edge of the sunlight, staring out at her from the shadow. Her heart plunged as she thought, "Pen," and then the dragon moved and she glimpsed black diamond shapes on the scales. With an even stronger burst of fear, she thought, "Blister? How could Blister be here?" But then the dragon stepped into the light and she realized he was a male and not one of the three Sandwing sisters after all. He still looked horribly like Blister, though. He had the same narrow face and lidded dark eyes, the same black patterns on his pale yellow scales. His poisonous tail barb slithered along the stones behind him, and his sharp claws made a tapping sound as he advanced toward them. He wore a cluster of keys and pouches and bells and chains around his neck that clinked and jingled slightly as he walked. Some of them were plain iron, while others flashed with jewels and gold paintings and gold plating. Alex bowed his head respectfully. "Smolder," he said, "I brought a gift for the Queen Byrne." "I see," Smolder said. Sunny felt a little better. His voice didn't have the oozing, creeping, sinister quality of Blister's voice. He sounded just normal, like one of her friends. "Who are you?" he asked her, and she liked that too, that he spoke directly to her instead of over her head as though she was nothing but a piece of treasure. "My name is Sunny," she answered. "Who are you?" "I'm the brother," Smolder said, and something in his expression said that he had many thoughts about that, but wouldn't risk going into detail. "Ben's brother? The only one?" Sunny asked, trying to remember what she'd read about the Sandwing royal family. "There used to be three of us, but the other two made the wrong dragons mad." He grimaced. "The wrong dragons meaning your sisters," Sunny guessed. "So you're on Ben's side?" "I'm here, aren't I?" he said, and it occurred to her that that wasn't much of an enthusiastic yes. "Where's Queen Byrne?" Addax cut in abruptly. "She's not home at the moment," Smolder said. He spread one wing and beckoned Sunny toward the main entrance. She's looking for a certain quintet of young dragons. Sunny stopped, looking up at him with a shiver. If Fern was searching for friends instead of fighting battles, she must really want to destroy them. Wait, Alex said. I want to see her. I mean, this is my prisoner. She's one of those. She's one of the ones in the prophecy. I know. I'll take it from here, Smolder said firmly. You can wait in the barracks until she returns. He nodded at the courtyard. Don't worry. You get all your pardons and your reinstatements. He flared one wing across Sunny's back and ushered her forward again. But my reward! Adax's voice trailed off as Sunny and Smolder stepped out of the bright sunlight into the cool shadows of a vast hall, big enough for 100 dragons. Far overhead, large fans shaped like dragon wings beat the air, and Sunny spotted a few small dragons pulling on ropes to keep them moving. Tapestries woven in blues and golds and whites covered the walls, echoing some of the same patterns in the stonework outside, and airy white curtains billowed at the long windows. A heavy table ran down the middle of the hall, loaded with food, and Sunny heard her stomach grumble. Take anything you like, Smolder said. No, thank you, Sunny answered politely. It seemed unlikely that the entire table of food was poisoned, but she didn't intend to make killing her any easier than it already would be. She tilted her head to study the tapestry closer to her and realized that the odd patterns of rust-colored spots on it was actually dried splatters of blood. The food is for the soldiers, Smolder said, sounding amused. I promise it's safe to eat. I'm not hungry, Sunny said. When do you think Bern will be back? Smolder shifted his wings with a shrug. I never know. She preferred not to discuss her plans. He lifted his claws and studied them thoughtfully, shaking out sand that was caught between his scales. The real question is what to do with you. On one talent, I assume she'd rather find you alive when she gets back, so she can kill you or interrogate you and then kill you herself. On the other talent, if I lock you up and you somehow escape, which I'm sure you'll try to do, I'll be in far worse trouble than if I just kill you right now. But on the third talent, if I successfully keep you captive, she should be quite pleased. It's a risk, though. You're guaranteed not to escape if I kill you. But on the fourth talent, Sunny said hurriedly, how will Bern find my friends if she can't ask me questions? Or use me as a hostage? Think about how valuable I am alive. Smoller said with a little smile. A tiny brown mouse crept out from under the table and made a dash for the nearest wall. Smolder flicked his tail toward it, but stopped at the last minute and let the mouse vanish into one of the cracks. He looked back at Sunny. All right, you talked me into it. You can live for now, but I'd appreciate it if you keep your escape attempts as feeble and ineffective as possible. He started toward a doorway at the far end of the hall, and Sunny followed, wondering if that was supposed to be funny. Smolder had this odd way of talking that kind of made everything sound like a joke. But then Sunny's life and death didn't seem particularly hilarious, at least if you asked her. There were 5 doors leading off the main hall, plus a staircase that led up to a balcony with 2 more doorways. Sunny considered trying to memorize the layout of a palace, but as soon as they stepped through into the dark, winding passage beyond, she knew it would be hopeless. The corridors of the old palace crisscrossed and twisted almost as often and confusing as the streets in the Scorpion Den. And they were sometimes barely wide enough for 2 dragons to squeeze past each other. Short flights of steps kept taking them up to new levels and then down again, and every other turn brought them to a spot that looked exactly like something they'd just passed. Sunny almost wondered if Smolder was messing with her head, except that he seemed to be calculating something under his breath and barely paid attention to her as they walked. The stone doors were worn smooth with the passage of many dragons, and the walls and ceilings were flat and unusually bare. Unusually bare as well. So Sunny felt as if walking through long narrow boxes. It was eerie and claustrophobic, with no space to fly, except for the occasional glimpses of sunlight from the upper levels. And 3 times they passed open sunlit courtyards where dragons were lying with their wings spread wide, soaking in the heat. I haven't seen any treasure, Sunny realized. No gold talon prints, no pearl studded pools, not even anything like the beautiful flowers that decorate the Rainbow Village, unless you count the tapestries. I wonder if that's because the Sandwing treasure is all really gone. Or perhaps sparkly things aren't Burns' style. She spotted a few carved statues of sandwings here and there, most of them with their wings tilted back as if they were about to take flight. After their experience in the Kingdom of Sea, Sunny had to admit all the statues made her a bit nervous. Any of them could be animus touched, enchanted to do something sinister. I think I should put you in the Weirdling collection, Smolder said after a while, as if they'd been discussing her placement the entire walk. It's as safe as a dungeon, but more comfortable. Also more psychologically destabilizing. What? Sunny said. The idea that you might actually belong somewhere like that. Smolder said. It's driven a few dragons insane. Oh, Sunny said. Sounds charming. Smolder rumbled chuckled and turned a corner, finally leading her out of the labyrinth into one of the inner courtyards. This one was surrounded on 3 sides by colonnades and balconies with a pit of sand in the middle. Sunny slid her claws through the sand as she followed him, thinking, what if this is the last time I ever feel sand under my talons? The far wall of the courtyard was curved, and when Sunny looked up, she realized that it was actually a windowless tower of red sandstone soaring up toward the sky. It had grooves stretching the whole length of it, like claw marks and bands of carvings, all the hideous dragon faces. All of hideous dragon faces. There were no holes in the tower apart from one door at the bottom, and Shawnee was seized with a fierce, desperate longing to stay as far away from it as possible. But of course, this was where Smolder was taking her, and of course she had no choice. He unlocked the door with a plain silver key from a chain around his neck, picked up a bucket of water that had been waiting outside, and led her into the dark interior. At first she thought her eyes were dazzled by the sun, but as they adjusted, she realized that the flashes of light around her came from small mirrors embedded in the walls, which caught the reflections of bronze oil lamps dangling in various heights on long wires from the ceiling far above. A winding ramp led from the floor round and around, up to the top of the tower. And here was Burns' notorious disturbing collection on display, spaced at intervals along the ramp were the exhibits. Sunny caught glimpses of claws and misshapen tails and melted scales, and thought with a shudder, I'm one of them now. Right at the bottom of the ramp was a wingless white dragon, its mouth twisted open in a roar of fury. Sunny jumped back, nearly knocking Smolder over before she realized the dragon was dead. And then That was actually worse, because it clearly had been alive once before Burns slit it open, let the life pour out, and then stuffed it so she could display it. Is that going to be me? Instead of saving the world, am I gonna end up stuffed and mounted on a pedestal? The fear that flooded through her made her want to lie down, cover her head with her wings, and scream for days. Trust in the prophecy, she told herself fiercely. I can't die here. The dragons of Pyria are counting on me. But Marusia's voice was still there, whispering, the prophecy isn't real. And as hard as she tried, Sunny couldn't quite find that faith that had once chased out every fear. The white dragon wasn't entirely wingless, she realized. It had little stops on its back that had never grown into wings. There was something eerily sleek and snake-like about it. The most truly horrifying part was the look on its face. Isn't it creepy? Smolder said in her ear, and she dumped again. Someone brought him to Burn 10 years ago, claiming he was the forbidden offspring of a sandwing and an icewing. Which is the right thing to say to her, even if it wasn't true, and who knows if it was, because she has, let's just say, some pretty strong opinions about tribe purity and not contaminating sandwing blood with cross-tribe breeding. Oh dear. Oh, Sunny. Oh, Sunny said faintly. She thought of Starflight, who felt a million miles away right now. On her list of reasons why they probably wouldn't work out, she hadn't thought to include contaminating sandwing blood. Smolder! A voice billowed suddenly from overhead. I hear you down there. If you don't bring me more water right now, I swear I'll catch that scavenger of yours and eat her. Sunny's head plunged through the floor. She stared at Smolder in shock. She knew that voice. Queen Scarlet of the Skywings was alive. And she was Burn's prisoner, too. End of chapter 9. One chapter left. Well, I mean, we already knew she was alive from last book because she had a Dreamwalker, I think it was called. Dream Visitor. Dream Visitor. She had a dream visitor and visited glories in her sleep through that. So we knew that already. I hate my skin. Anyway, on to the last chapter. Queen Scarlet is here? Sunny whispered to Smolder. Everyone's looking for her. There are dragons who think we're holding her captive. He scratched his nose with one claw inside. My sister likes to keep a close eye on her things, he said. The Skywing Queen is a bit of a problem right now. Although, mostly she's a problem for me, the unlucky dragon sitter. He glanced up at the dark ceiling way above them, then peered around the floor. Sorry, I need to just check how many pages. Shoot. 13. 13. 13. 13. I don't know how to say it properly. Flower! He shouted suddenly. Flower! He tilted a small bell from around his neck and rang it, letting the tingling noise echo across the dark space. Something pitter-pattered on the ramp above them, and after a moment, Sunny picked up a tiny figure scurrying down. That's not a dragon, she thought with surprise. It was a scavenger, alive and upright and chattering like a squirrel, bold as you please, right in the middle of a sandring palace. It jumped down the last level of the floor and darted over to Smolder for a grim, worrying moment. Sunny expected him to rip the scavenger's head off and offer the whole creature to her for dinner or something. Instead, the Sandwing Prince rested his front talons on the floor, and the scavenger clambered right onto one of them, sat down, and resumed chattering a little louder, along with some vigorous paw waving. "Oh my gosh!" Sunny said, momentarily distracted from Queen Scarlet. "It's so cute." The scavenger looked kind of like a bigger, less hairy version of the sloths in the rainforest. It ran on its two legs with easy balance, and its slender paws had no claws on them. A thatch of black fur covered the top of its head and ran down like a mane onto its shoulders. It had a square of white fabric tied around itself that looked suspiciously as though it had been hacked off one of the main hall curtains. Plus a sort of pouch bag made of the same material. "I know, isn't she?" said Smolder. "That's what I've been saying. I have to watch her carefully, though. Several dragons would be perfectly happy to eat her if they caught her alone. This is one place I figure she's safe." He tilted her up to his snout, and the scavenger leaned forward to bump noses with him. "Where did you get her?" Sunny asked. "And why do you call her Flower?" Smolder reached around and set the scavenger on the back of his neck, where she grabbed on to his spikes and balanced as he started up the ramp. Sunny trailed behind him, wondering if this might be a good time to make a run for it, but she was pretty sure the tower door had locked behind them. "We had some scavenger visitors about 20 years ago. You may have heard about that," Smolder said in his sarcastic voice. "And this is one who didn't escape." 20 years ago? It took Sunny a moment to realize what he must mean. "Wait, visitors? Plural?" Sunny asked. "I thought it was just one scavenger who killed the queen and stole the treasure." They passed a fish tank glowing with a greenish light that seemed to be coming from the sea creatures themselves. There were fish with bulging eyes. Why did it take me so long to read that? There were fish with bulging eyes and extra flippers, seahorses with fangs, snails that oozed purple ichor, and an octopus kind of thing with at least 20 arms that was busily occupied with crushing up seashells and dropping them into its black beak of a mouth. "Nope," said Smolder. "3 scavengers. 2 escaped with the treasure, but we caught this one trying to hide just outside the palace. Ben was going to put her head on a spike on the wall and just eat the rest, but I decided I wanted to keep her. And at the time, I had other dragons to back me up." He took a deep breath and folded his wings back into a tent over the scavenger for a moment before tucking them into his side again. Bliss argued that a scavenger head on a spike wouldn't impress anyone. In fact, it would just remind everyone of Mother's embarrassing death. He went on. "Blaze thought Flower was cute too, and wanted to see if we could get another scavenger and breed them to make more pets. And my brother said I should get to have one thing I wanted, now that Mother wasn't around to keep making me unhappy." He paused, and Sunny glanced up at him. She got the feeling it wouldn't be a good idea to ask any questions about Oasis. "Smolder!" "Oh, Hey, welcome! Just reading. We're on the last chapter of the day. So. Well. Yeah, I just realized what your name is. Okay. Um. Well. Hmm. Well, this is embarrassing to watch. Making fun of my size and everything. Well, that is fun. And I guess to some. Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say nothing is more embarrassing than having a name like Transkiller 1993. In fact, this is a statement of power, of me being myself. What is going on? How are there so many people here suddenly? What is. I mean, I like chaos in my chat, but this is not the kind of chaos I want. Just gonna quickly do this. Boom. There we go. Don't have to watch. Don't have to look at that anymore. Two idiots making fun of someone who has a larger body and making fun of someone who is LGBT. So. Well, but hi to you other two who didn't act like big assholes. Now, where was I? He paused, and Sunny glanced up at him. She got the feeling it wouldn't be a good idea to ask any questions about Oasis. Smolder! Queen Scarlet bellowed again, and a burst of fire lit up the tower from an upper level. Coming, he called politely, then carried on talking to Sunny as if there were really no hurry at all. Anyway, they voted to let me keep her, and by now, burn shoes to her. I was going to call her Stabby. God. What is going on? Are you just like going around finding small streamers with the LGBT tag or something? Was that quite embarrassing on your part? And I'm sorry for yelling. Um, but this is a book. There's going to be yelling and many different voices. So okay. I mean, I give the different characters uh different voices. So, but I usually use my own voice to read the uh non-dialogue. If I have a Discord, I do, but not a server. I don't have a Discord server. I'm just a regular Discord user. So. Mm. I was going to call her Stabby. She was pretty fierce with this little sword she was carrying before we took it off her. But then she found a tapestry with some flowers on it and kept pointing to them and then to herself. So I think she wants me to call her Flower, although all her chattering noises sound the same to me. Sunny glanced at another glass exhibit case as they walked by, and then really wished she hadn't. Inside were lots of parts of dragons. Webbed sea wing talons, a few tongues with 3 forks instead of 2, half a wing that was speckled purple and grey, unlike any dragons she'd ever seen, a coil of tail with strange lichen growing on it, and a number of oddly bent teeth and claws. She shuddered. Well, if you think this is boring, you're welcome to leave. Because I assure you, this series is not boring at all. And this is the 5th book in the series, by the way. No, I am not going to do that. I'm not going to be reading that. Oh my gosh. I am going to lose my shit. Anyway. Have you ever read James? I have not read those. I haven't heard of them either. I can look them up if you want. I can't promise anything, though, about reading them on stream because there are um, a lot of books on this series that I want to go through. So, how many pages are left? I promised my partner I'd call them later. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 pages. How many have we gone through? like romantic partner in a relationship. But I guess you could call them my partner in crime too. You're a very distressing person. Okay. My name is Bones. They use they them pronouns. We've been together for over a year. I'm going to be sending them a B-Day box soon with lots of stuff in it, including a painting I painted on their birthday last year. They call me Sunlight, I call them Moonlight, which is what the painting is based off of. Oh, I see how it is. Their pronouns are they them. No, they are not. Yes, they are plural, but also no. Because you can easily use they them to talk about another person. For instance, if you don't know the gender of someone, you can use they them. Or like, um, if you're just talking about something in general, like, um, uh, uh, I'm blanking right now. Why would that be the meaning? If you don't know the gender of someone, why would you not? I'm just gonna not look at chat for the rest of the stream because I'm actually losing energy to read right now, which is the main goal of these streams, to read to you guys. And I'm slowly losing energy. Also, mental energy. So, if you ask me any questions, I'm sorry. I will read the chat after I stream. But I'm losing energy right now. And I've had a lot of it today actually, which is unusual for me. Uh my psychologist even uh said that I was full of energy today. So anyway, away with chat. And it is getting quite dark outside. So I'm just gonna do this. See if we can get a bit more light. So that I also can see what I'm reading. Anyway. Sunny glanced at another glass exhibit as they walked by, and then really wished she hadn't. Inside were lots of parts of dragons, webbed sea-wing talons, a few tongues with 3 forks instead of 2, half a wing that was speckled purple and grey unlike any dragons she'd ever seen, a coil of tail with strange lichen growing on it, and a number of oddly bent teeth and claws. She shuddered and dragged her focus back to Smolder and Flower. "I've never heard of an animal choosing its own name before," she said, "but then I've never heard of anyone keeping a scavenger as a pet either. The only pets—" She stopped and clapped her front talons over her mouth in horror. She'd nearly mentioned the Rainwings and their pet sloth, which would have given away exactly where her friends were. Stupid, stupid, stupid Sunny! She scolded herself. Be more careful about what you say. The only pets? Smolder echoed, giving her curious looks. The only pets I've ever heard of are kept by scavengers, Sunny said quickly. Ah, yes, said Smolder, and for the first time his voice was affectionate instead of sardonic. Flower likes mice, and she's always feeding any birds that dare to come down into the courtyards. He lifted one of his claws, and the scavenger patted it, as if to reassure him she was still there. Does she understand you? Sunny asked. Of course not, but she's very clever, he said. I trained her to come when I ring this bell, and I taught her to draw so she can draw pictures of anything she needs. She can draw? Sunny said, fascinated. She learned to write and draw with a paintbrush that was more than half this scavenger's size. With what? She made herself this adorable tiny paintbrush. She likes to make things, Smolder said proudly. She also made all these cute little costumes for herself. Don't ask me why. It's like how birds build nests, I think, by instinct, but really endearing. Although Bun complains that she's worse than moths, leaving holes in all our currents. I'd call it resourceful. I'd call it resourceful if anyone asked me. Resourceful? I'll say, Sunny thought, remembering the burned out village as well. She gave the scavenger an appraising look, and the scavenger stared back at her with those dragon-like brown eyes, deeper and wiser than you would expect. What's going on in that tiny head? Sunny wondered. Her brain can't be any bigger than a grapefruit, but maybe it works in mysterious ways. Maybe scavengers are cleverer than they seem. Another dragon suddenly loomed out of the shadows, but Sunny was able to stop herself from flinching away this time. It was another stuffed specimen, this time a mudwing with, with striated, with straighted red lines along his outstretched wings. He had no claws or teeth and a puzzled expression. 3 moons, Sunny said. What happened to him? The seller said his egg was animus touched, Mulder said, or rather animus cursed. Some kind of vengeance thing, maybe? Who would want a dragonette without claws or teeth? How could he live? He was destined to end up here eventually. Like me, Sunny thought despite herself. Weird looking. No other use for me. Stop that. You have a real destiny. She tilted her head at the sad stuffed dragon. Animus touched? Could that be what happened to my egg? Did some dragon do this to me before I was hatched? Deliberately? But who and why? Her mind flashed back to the question Thorn had asked the Nightwings. She was looking for a Nightwing called Stonemower. That sure sounded like an animus name. What if he did something to my egg? She was preoccupied with this question that when they came into that they went that when they came within sight of an orange dragon, she assumed it was another stuffed specimen and barely glanced at it. But then the dragon lunged at them with a hiss, furious hiss, and Smolder backed up in a hurry, nearly knocking Sunny off the winding ramp. She dug her talons into the cracks in the stone, and her heart tried to leap out of her chest. Smolder, Queen Scarlet hissed. Finally. Coils of smoke writhed around her horns, but they couldn't hide what was underneath. How the side of the Skywing's face was melted into a hideous dark mess, revealing a glimpse of her jawbone underneath and pulling one of her yellow eyes down and out of proportion with the rest of her face. The rubies that had been embedded in her scales were gone above that eye, and so were the earlier adornments, the golden chainmail and medallions, the rings on her claws, the rubies on her wings. The only jewel left were the tiny rubies above her good eye, which glittered malevolently in the dim light. The last time they'd been face to face, it had been through the bars of a cage. Sunny had been the prisoner, and Scarlet had been the one of the most beautiful, powerful dragons of Imperia. No wonder she hates us, Sunny thought. The Glory did this to her to save the rest of us. We'd all be dead by now otherwise. Here's your water, Smolder said, setting the pail down on a claw-scratched X on the floor. The Queen snatched up the pail, and Sunny realized that the X marked the very limit of her reach. Heavy chains kept her from moving any further. On the other side of the X, littering the floor around Scarlet's claws, were shards of shattered glass and puddles of glowing green slime. Here and there were in the puddles lay the corpses of peculiar insects. Sunny could see oddly bulging caterpillars, nine-legged hairy spiders, and a bright blue dragonfly whose back bristled with sharp needle spines. When are you going to clean this up? Scarlet snapped at Smolder, her snout dripping as she came up for air from the bucket. There's slime on my beautiful tail, and I keep finding bits of horrible bugs in between my scales. He snorted. Perhaps you should have thought of that before smashing up your host's prized collection. He nodded at something lumpy glittering the shadow behind her. Bern is going to be especially upset about her Nightwing. They're not exactly easy to replace. Sunny realized that Scarlet must have been chained up near stuffed Nightwing, which she had then clawed and shredded in a fit of rage. Sunny shuddered. Scarlet lashed her tail. I'll get to the rest of her toys, too, once I'm free. Scarlet, Smolder said patiently, we're not keeping you prisoner. We're keeping you safe. If you were in your own kingdom right now, you'd be dead. You're in no condition to fight Ruby for the throne. That's Queen Scarlet to you, she said fiercely. Her gaze moved to Sunny, and then she swirled her head to stare with her good eye. Sunny took an involuntary step back behind Smolder. I know her, Scarlet growled. That dragon is mine. I am not, Sunny retorted. I'm not anybody's. I know where your Rainwing friend is, the Queen snarled, pacing to the end of her chains and glaring at Sunny. As soon as I'm free, she is dead. Then I hope you stay locked in here forever, Sunny snapped. I have friends too, Scarlet hissed. I won't be here much longer. Sunny looked up at Smolder, but his expression was more tired than worried. Come along, he said to Sunny. We have to fly around her. I know it's inconvenient, but I'm not taking responsibility for unchaining her. Bern can move her when she gets here, if she wants to. He spread his wings and soared over Scarlet's to the next level up, with Flower clinging tightly to his neck. Sunny followed, a bit nervously, her wings brushing the walls as she tried to stay as far out of Scarlet's reach as possible. They landed close to the top of the tower, where the light was dimmest, and Sunny saw with a sinking heart that there were chains just like Scarlet's here, waiting for her. They lay collapsed on the ground like dead snakeskin, and they clanked horribly as Smolder picked them up. Sunny curled her tail around her talons and looked at them for a moment, breathing deeply to calm herself. She looked up and met Smolder's eyes. Do I really have to stay here? She asked quietly. Smolder hesitated with the chain draped across his front talons. Flower looked from him to Sunny, then slipped off his back. To Sunny's surprise, the little scavenger came right up and patted Sunny on the side of her neck. She didn't have to be able to talk. The gesture said clearly, Don't worry, you'll be alright. As clearly as if the scavenger had a tail to twine around Sunny's. It's not like I have much choice, Smolder said. I can't imagine what else to do with you. It's just really dark, Sunny said. His scales were practically crying out for the sunlight right beyond these walls. But more than that, the thing she couldn't bring herself to say what was that she could already tell that being in here too long would carve out her soul one miserable moment at a time, until she'd be as empty and hopeless as one of the stuffed dragons. I know, Smolder said, and Sunny sensed the first hint of possible compassion in his voice. She wondered if it was partly because Flower felt sorry for her. Tell you what, he said after a pause. I'll think about it tonight and see if I can come up with something else tomorrow. If not, I'll take you out for a bit at midday. At least let you stretch your wings in the sun as long as you promise not to escape. Deal? Sure, Sunny said. Thank you. It wasn't much, but it sounded like the best she could hope for. He clamped the chains around her ankles, locking them with another one of the keys around his neck. Sunny turned her head away, unwilling to watch herself made a prisoner yet again, and spotted a large box tucked against the wall not far away at the very end of the spiraling ramp. What's that? She asked. Something new for Burn's collection, Smolder said, glancing up at it. The dragon who came by to sell it claims it's something rare and priceless, and that Burn will definitely want it. But that it might die as soon as we open the box. So I'm leaving it closed until Burn gets here, and she can decide what to do with it. Do you even know what it is? Sunny asked. What if it's an empty box? Then I'll get yelled at, Smolder said. But he'll get hunted down and killed, so I doubt he'd risk it. Dragons have tried to trick Burn before, sewing sewing 3, 2, 1, odd sewing odd animal parts together, dyeing normal insects strange colors, and it has always proven to be a very bad idea. Besides, he haggled so hard over the price, he nearly refused to give it to me. It must be something pretty unusual. Also, it keeps making this strange, high-pitched hissing noise. He gave her a sharp look as he snapped the last chain on. Don't get any ideas from Scarlet's bad behavior. My sister has reasons to keep the Skywing Queen alive. She has a lot more reason to make you dead, so don't add to them. Sunny nodded, not trusting herself to speak. This was a nightmare. The situation she and her friends had always feared. She was in Burn's clutches now, and she couldn't think of any possible way she might escape. I'll be back before you know it, Smolder said. He dipped his wing toward the scavenger. Up, Flower. The little creature looked up at Sunny with her thoughtful brown eyes, and then patted Sunny's side again and sat down. Smolder tipped his head sideways and peered at her. Flower, come along. He rang his bell and held out his claws. Flower shook her head firmly and put one claw on one of Sunny's front talons. She wants to stay with you, Smolder said. That's funny. Flower's usually extremely cautious around any dragons who's not me. He narrowed his eyes at Sunny. If I leave her with you, will you be careful with her? No knocking her off the ramp, no stepping on her, and definitely no eating her. I wouldn't eat her, Sunny protested. I barely even like meat, except sometimes a lizard here or there, and I think she's been really sweet. There was something comforting about the idea of having someone with her in this dark tower, apart from Queen Scarlet, even if it was a scavenger. Well, Smolder said, fidgeting, if you promise to be careful. Flower, are you sure? Flower kept a paw on Sunny and stared back at him without moving. All right, he sighed. See you soon. He lifted off the edge and flew in a gentle spiral down to the bottom of the tower. Sunny leaned out and saw the shaft of sunlight that spilled into the room as he opened the door, and then saw it disappear again as the door slammed behind him. The weight around her ankles felt suddenly even heavier. She rested her head on her front talons with a sigh, curling her tail in close. Flower immediately tucked herself into the curve of Sunny's side, reached into her bag and pulled out a scrap of roll paper and a lumpy stick of charcoal. In the dim light, she started to sketch, and Sunny, peering over her shoulder, saw a dragon's face appearing in rapid strokes. Her face, in fact. That's amazing, Sunny said. How can an animal create art like that? Flower glanced up and did something with her mouth that looked exactly like a dragon smile. Sunny found herself smiling back, despite her fear and her worry. At least she wasn't alone. Little Sandwing, Queen Scarlet's voice hissed softly from below her. You think Ben is what you have to worry about right now? She's not. I am. I'll be free soon. Free, and I'll be coming for all my enemies. Think about that while you try to fall asleep. What I'm going to do to your friends when I get my claws on them. How messy and thrilling it's going to be. Sunny closed her eyes and covered her ears, but the whispers continued inside her head. What if Bern comes tomorrow? What if he kills me right away? What if I never get to find out the truth about my mother and my egg? Never get to spend more time with her? What if the prophecy is fake? What if I really have no destiny other than end up here? What if nobody's going to end the war or save the world? And worst of all, what if I never see my friends again? End of chapter 10 and the last chapter of the day. Yep. So that was the last chapter of the day. Suddenly interesting with all the people that suddenly came into my chat. All of them being quite, let's say, fat shaming and homophobic, transphobic, etc. Well, I am going to go offline now. I'll be back tomorrow with another 5 chapters. But for now, I am going to chat with my partner because that was very uncomfortable. So, yeah. Bye.